Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the Jay Hines 49 podcast. I am here with some great friends of mine and brothers, Cameron Zyke and Chase Zyke. Chase, just so you know, you are muted. And we are here to unpack Super Bowl. The Super Bowl, I don't even remember the number of the Super Bowl. That's how messed up I am right now. Is it 58?
Yep.
58. 58. Super Bowl 58, where the Kansas City Chiefs beat my beloved San Francisco 49ers 25-22 in the second ever overtime Super Bowl game. Let's take it away, boys. I'm just going to hand it to you. Key takeaways, key thoughts coming from this game.
I think maybe we should give you a few moments here to just reflect on the game, reflect on the season. You had the most at stake, even though you said you weren't getting invested. You were definitely invested. So let's have some catharsis here, Hines.
Yeah, I would agree there. As much as you wanted to tell us that you weren't emotionally invested, you obviously were, and we need to work through those right here. So,
boys, I appreciate that. I was very emotionally invested, and yeah. So my key takeaways were, again, for the second time in the last 5 years, the Niners have had a 10-point lead in a Super Bowl, this time a little earlier, and we've lost it. And that 10-point lead never felt like a big lead to me as a fan, just because knowing who's on the other side of the field and maybe the future GOAT, if not currently definitely the baby GOAT, Patrick Mahomes, that 10-point lead felt like it should have been 17. We went up 7 at halftime, and I felt like we were down 7. It felt like we were down because we left some points on the field, and then the second half started, and we picked off Patrick Mahomes, and I thought, here is our opportunity. And we failed to run the ball. We, in those first 3 drives in the second half, we had 8 passes and 1 run. And I have reasons for all of that and reasons why Shanahan might have chose to do that. First down, we had pass looks that were disguised well, and we couldn't do it. And so, and then we got in second and longs and second and 15s, and then you kind of have to pass there. So, hard game. Didn't feel good going into overtime, and we can talk about it all. So thank you, boys, for letting me share a little bit. It's been hard, but it's good. We're going to be okay. We're going to be all right. So I want to hear from you. Key takeaways for you as kind of neutral fans. I say neutral lightly because I think both of you have a bias against my beloved San Francisco 49ers, and I'm sure I'm partially or largely to blame for that. So take it away.
listen, I'm inclined to agree with Patrick Mahomes the second when he says Kansas City is never an underdog, especially after this Super Bowl here. I don't think they should have been an underdog. I think it should have been the other way around. And I think they just solidified that, with winning this Super Bowl, with the roster that they had compared to you guys. I mean, just an incredible quarterback, an incredible coach, Andy Reid. Let's not forget about him. That is my key takeaway, is that, yeah, Patrick Mahomes is what they like to say, him, and he's not going anywhere.
Do it in the Kermit voice.
I can't. If I was John Mullen, I could. You want me to try right here? All right. I'm here. I'm here. You put me on the spot. That's what you're going to get.
It's not terrible. It sounds like if Kermit was underwater and trying to like alert his like the lifeguard at the community pool
Yeah, you're right.
in
That's
the
good.
pool. Yeah.
I'm here. Okay.
Uh, key key takeaway from me just overall in the game was just how unafraid the Chiefs seemed the entire game. Um, their game plan spoke to not being unafraid. Their level of calmness throughout the entire game. They just seemed unafraid, and in some ways, and I realize that this is individual players. There was some significant physicality that I don't think we probably expected from the Chiefs, from their outside guys, the cornerbacks, and then a couple of those role players in the front seven. Right, they were significantly more physical than I was anticipating, and so I think just the general level of preparedness and unafraidness, which isn't a word, but that that was the biggest takeaway for me. Which when you've got Mahomes playing quarterback for you, you have almost no reason to be worried.
Very, very true. He's just solidified that. He's the greatest of all time, potentially. I think he is. I think he is right there, or he is on his way in that conversation. I already have him at 2 on the Mount Rushmore. I don't know where you guys have him. As a Niners fan, I'm saying he has surpassed with this win and this performance, in this playoff performance, by the way, to come on the road in 2 games and to do what he did with his team and with limited weapons offensively and a great defense, but limited offensive weapons. Very, very impressive. So let's share some key plays and moments from this game in chat. I know we got some people on here. Feel free to chime in, and we will, if it's something reasonable, John Mullen, we will put it on the screen. Okay, we will put it on the screen, perhaps. So, key plays, key moments of this game. What were some maybe turning point moments and some things that just really stuck out to you guys?
You guys were just killing it that first drive, and then McCaffrey fumbles it. And I think if you walk away with 3 points, 7 points, this could be a much different conversation. But that was so early in the game, you have no idea, really even. But that felt like a moment where, now in hindsight, not in the moment, it didn't feel like that game was lost there, but that the game may have been lost there, right? In hindsight. The only other thing I would add to that in terms of just key plays is more the absence of key plays. There was not many explosive plays by the Niners, which is not very common for them. And so the Chiefs figured out a way to have almost 0 explosive plays. Like Brock was, I think, 1 for 5 for throws that were 20 plus air yards. That's really low for them, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And so I think it was the absence of explosive plays that were the key plays.
That's a very, very fair takeaway. Obviously, Mahomes had that one 50-plus yard air yard throw that looked like it could have been picked off from the replay if our safety could have located the ball. He didn't. But later on, even in that drive, was the fumble by Pacheco. So it was all for naught regardless. But that was the one key big play in terms of passes that I can even think of in this game. A lot of other ones were just short passes that were long scampers. And I think KC had probably 1 or 2 more than the Niners in that area. Cam.
Yeah, and you're focused on the the offensive plays and lack thereof. Where the play that stands out to me, where I said, the Chiefs are winning this ball game, is the punt that went off the gentleman's leg and put the Chiefs in the red zone. I just think that was a ginormous blow to the Niners morale and just overall confidence to get the job done.
Yeah. It was that I think again that's fair, Cam. There were a lack of offensive plays, especially for the Niners. There were some good key plays. Again, they weren't the big explosive ones, right? There was one key pass on 3rd and 9, I think it was, to Chris Conley. We had Debo out on the sideline. Seemed like he was favoring a hamstring. I know one time he went down. But there seemed to be potentially some fatigue kicking in. At some points, Kyle was going hurry up offense. You could see some of the boys were gassed. And so we were working in guys like Chris Conley. Jawan Jennings played a key role the entire game. Looked like at one point he could have been the MVP if the Niners could have pulled it out with a passing throw and a passing touchdown for a throw. And then obviously a catch for a touchdown, which was about an 8-yard scamper on a slant into the end zone where he broke a tackle as Jawan Jennings.
You're not going to get me to stop saying that Brock Purdy scampers by saying that everyone else scampers.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, I know what you're trying to do. We could just move on.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout out. Thank you. Shout out Steven. Steven saying go Chiefs. We respect it, man. We're here for it. And congratulations if you're a Chiefs fan.
Yeah, Steve Geist, Kansas City native, Wichita State, or Kansas State graduate, friend of mine. I think when you're talking about key plays and moments, you have to mention a couple overthrows by Brock Purdy to wide receivers in the end zone. Now, pressure, hit, yes, correct. Yes. Super Bowl winning quarterbacks make those throws, or at least make them a little bit more catchable than they were. You know, you had Debo on the one. I think it was it Ayuk on the other?
I remember one overthrow in the end zone.
Maybe it was one red zone.
Other one
just driving the field. But there was
if you're
a couple
speaking of the overtime one on 3rd and 3, where it's overtime and we're driving, we're down there 3rd and 3, it led to the field goal. I'd say that wasn't an overthrow as much as it was an intentional overthrow to ensure that this ball doesn't get picked off and we live to go another down. But there was definitely a Debo where he had a stride or a stride and a half, and he broke free, and Purdy got hit on the left side by Chris Jones and overthrew him. And yeah, you're right. We scored 6 on that drive. But you're right. Super Bowl winning quarterbacks, they got to make those plays. I think that's fair. Moving forward, let me talk about a big play, a key play and a key moment that I think needs to be mentioned. It got to the point where when we fumbled on the first drive, CMC, very unlikely turnover there for him. He feels horrible about it. There's a video out there just today where he says, I keep playing that over in my head. And man, that's just hard. But then Pacheco does the same thing on a scoring drive as well. And it's like, my goodness, we're even. And, you know, I shared going into this game with you guys, if we can be even or win the turnover battle, we have a good chance to win this game. And then in the second half, when the Chiefs could not score, believe it was the second drive of their second half, they were forced to punt again. So Patrick Mahomes' first drive threw an INT. Second drive, I believe we forced them to punt. And it's like, here we go. Another opportunity. And there's a huge fumble on special teams. And Ray McCloud, and this might have been later in the third quarter. I could be remembering it wrong. But Ray McCloud, instead of diving on it, chooses to try to pick it up and run. And in that, kind of fumbles the bag, as the kids say, and fumbled the ball as a result, or was not able to secure the ball as a result. And the Chiefs recovered, and they scored on the very next play with a wide open guy down the seam. And that just seemed to deflate the Niners from even then on. I mean, it went back and forth the rest of the game, but that was just a huge key moment where the Chiefs just could not score. And then another key moment is when Dre Greenlaw early in the second quarter tears his Achilles. I don't know if we call it tears or
Was that
ruptures.
confirmed an Achilles tear?
It was confirmed by halftime, I think.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
I
was
didn't even-
confirmed
Or, I
fairly
mean,
quickly.
I was in the second half. No, that was in the beginning of the game. Yeah, so it was confirmed by
Yeah.
halftime.
Yeah. And so
Okay.
that was key because if you look at his highlights for the first quarter and a quarter, first, 15 minutes or so in that game, that man was playing out of his ever loving mind. And it was impressive. And look, shout out to the guys who came in. Olin Burks, I know was one, and then we had another backup linebacker because we're pretty deep in that area. But there is nothing like Dre Greenlaw. Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner for the Niners are kind of like give me like Patrick Willis, Navarro Bowman vibes. And they're just a great 1-2 together. Obviously, Warner being more like the Willis. And Greenlaw.
I think
maybe
I'd
being
prefer the
more.
Urlacher and Briggs duo. If you're
That's
asking, if you
fair.
ask
That's
me.
fair. Yeah. Well, with your hat, I would expect that. Okay.
Fair enough.
Moving forward, nice hat. Looks good on you. Moving forward, we got to talk this. Are we all in agreement that the Kansas City Chiefs officially have a dynasty on their hands? 3 Super Bowls in 5 years, 3 Super Bowl wins in 5 years, 4 Super Bowl appearances.
I'm aligned.
Yeah, I don't really know what else. It is incredible to be 3 for 4 in 5 years or 6 years.
6 years. Yep.
To be in every single AFC Championship game since you've been in the league. Patrick Mahomes is, I don't even know what to say. To that is
He's
that's
here.
That's rarefied air is all I was gonna say. And so yeah, mini dynasty. He's on. And here's the thing, right? I think we can appreciate what we have in the moment without embellishing, because it's more likely that he ends with 3 Super Bowl victories than it is that he ends with more than 6. And so I think we can appreciate the moment that we're in, what we're experiencing, and go from there. But yeah, mini dynasty, or not even mini. It is a dynasty.
I have a question, and this is just my train of thought on the dynasty topic. I was always under the impression that 3 championships within a good shortened amount of time essentially qualifies you as a dynasty in any sport. Is that the case? I'd like to know what the chat says about that, as well as John and Chase, because that's just my train of thought. The Blackhawks in the early 2010s, the Red Sox, the Chiefs right now, and when Tom Brady was winning. I mean, it seems like 3 was the number to get that tag of dynasty.
I appreciate you mentioning the Red Sox, but we weren't a dynasty. We were too far apart. 04, 07,
Okay.
13, and 18.
I didn't realize 13 was so far apart from 07.
Well, it is 6 years. It's been 6 years pretty much
Right.
since math was invented. So
Okay. Well, I also don't know the specific years the Red Sox won the World Series. I just know they won it quite a bit.
Well, it's easy for you to remember because the White Sox have only won 1, and it's 2005, so you have to remember 1 year. So
we're
makes
going to
sense.
talk about that. All right. We're going to talk about this because it is a great hypothetical. Stay with us, friends.
Yeah.
I have to apologize to my stream on my Facebook. I was telling Cam to go public and realized I forgot to go public. So now I'm public. Now I can see your guys' comments because I was thinking, man, my people are shafting me here. I can't get anyone to comment, but that's because I wasn't public. And so now I can see you guys. Shout out Dan Skipper's here. Hey, Cowboys have won an SB more recently than the 49ers. Some laughing emojis. That is very true. But I'd also say the Cowboys haven't done much else since. They have been pretty, I don't want to say pathetic, but there's been a lot of hype surrounding them for many years where they just have not been able to barely win a playoff game in the last decade or so. Maybe 2 playoff wins or 2 or 3 maybe in the last 10 years. You can fact check that, but they have won an ESPY, and currently we are tied with the Cowboys in terms of Super Bowl wins in our history, stuck at 5. 2 teams stuck at 5, looking up at the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New England Patriots, who are at 6 and leading the race. Good.
And I think I think, Cam, though, 3 in 5 years is probably the criteria for a dynasty, though, across all sports, right?
Wait. Hold on. That's actually news to me. So you say, Chase, 3 in 5 years is a dynasty, because right now we're talking with the Chiefs, 3 and 6, right?
Yeah, but it's 3 out of 4.
It's 3 out of 4, and it is actually 3 in 5 years with the Chiefs because they lost the
Yeah.
one 6 years ago.
Yeah.
That's fair. And they lost that to the New England Patriots, correct?
No,
Brady.
the Bucks.
Yeah, it was Brady and the
Bucks in
Bucks.
2018.
Yeah, it was the Bucks.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. Yeah, it was Brady and the Bucks. They whooped him. They beat him by like 3 scores. Sorry. That offensive line for the Bucks that year, with a very not mobile Brady, not as if he was ever really mobile at all. I was watching some highlights of that Super Bowl, actually, last 48 hours, and my goodness, he had all day to throw. Oh, he had all day to throw. I have a theory that's why he was not interested in coming on the Niners this year when they asked him. I have a theory that had to be going through his mind when he looked at the right side of our offensive line. Like, no, that's not going to work for my 42 or whatever year old body.
My theory is that Kyle wouldn't give him the autonomy he wants at the line of scrimmage. That is probably more likely than anything else.
Maybe he just
Maybe.
is tired of playing football.
Yeah, that maybe all of those points are valid
$350 million
points.
from Fox is going to be hard to turn down for that many years.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Dan Skipper says, good question for you, Chase. Now you're on here. Who does Chase like? I see who Cam likes.
Well, I would like to say, so I do like the Bears, but you have on the outline here. Would you rather have your favorite team win the Super Bowl and be bad for the next 20 years?
Whoa.
I'm just
we're gonna
saying.
get there.
Okay, all right.
We're going to get there. Who do you like?
The Bears fan. I'm a Bears fan.
He's a Bears fan. He's a Bears
Yeah.
fan. We're going to get there. I promise. We're going somewhere, man.
Cam,
Actually, say what?
No, I was just Cam asked a dynasty question. I made fun of the White Sox, derailed us, so I was pulling us back in a little bit.
I appreciate that. You're kind of a level guy. You've always been a level guy ever since I've known you. Just even keel.
I still feel like Hines hasn't answered the dynasty question, but that's just how I feel.
I wouldn't say 3 in 5 years. I feel like that. I feel like 3 and 7 is like if you're around like we're winning almost every other year and we've won 3 in this like 7-year span. To me, that's like, dang, you're a dynasty. All right, this is a dynasty. You're winning 50% or so of the time, taking it all of the way. I feel like that's, to me, that's close enough to a dynasty. And if you're relevant in those in-between years and making some playoff pushes and everything else, and you're in, like that, to me is dynasty.
I think
enough.
the only sport that qualifies for maybe baseball, just because of how much harder it is to go to get 3 championships in a 5 to 7 year period. Because I mean, if you even think about like the Yankees in the 90s, it wasn't 3 and 5. What, you know what I mean? Like I don't actually remember, but I think 3 and 7 for baseball may fit. But I'm not sure any of the other sports. I don't really care about hockey, so I don't speak to that one. But the other big 2, I would say 3 and 5 is appropriate.
Okay, it's fair.
And I also feel like the roster, has to kind of be common throughout those wins, right? The Yankees had a pretty core group in the 90s of who they were winning with. The Blackhawks had core group of Taves, Patrick Kane, Patrick Sharp, Seabrook, Corey Crawford, and Duncan Keith. So to me, it also plays a part. Have there been huge roster changes? Have there not? Who's been the core group throughout, we'll say, the 5 to 7 years of them winning 3 or 4 championships?
Fair. Grant Prairie want to acknowledge this. He says, I wish this is coming from a Bears fan as well. I wish the 49ers would have won. My Bears fans to the left and right of me disagree. He says they do the Lord's work every year, knocking out the Packers. Again, my friends to the left and right of me don't really see it that way. And so thank you for being a reasonable Bears fan, Grant.
I'd like to go ahead and speak for myself on this one, Hines.
Please.
The way I see it is we're watching the future greatest of all time football player become the greatest of all time. And I enjoy being able to watch that. I like CMC as a player. I think it would be great for his legacy to win a championship. And I actually don't mind the 49ers. They got one of the best color schemes, if you ask me, on their uniforms and their logos. I'm a big color guy. And, I just wanted to put that out there as you were speaking for me there. So
no, that's fair. That's fair. I tend to, I can understand that. I got to the point finally with Brady, where I don't know when was it. I think it was like when he was later 30s though. So I would say I didn't really have that feeling as much when he was in his early 30s and just starting to rack up some SB wins. But something about him being in his like later 30s and getting older and older and still competing at the highest level, where I finally turned and said, man, I'm just rooting for this guy. I am just rooting for him to win another one. And when he went against the Kansas City Chiefs in that last Super Bowl win for him, I mean, I was rooting for the Bucs that game. So that's fair.
And I think we all agree that Mahomes is on a trajectory that we've never seen potentially, not just Super Bowl victories, but the stats that are going along with it in the offensive this year, the offensive talent that came with it. I know Brady's had a couple of those years as well, but from a pure numbers and Super Bowl victory perspective, the trajectory is crazy. But on the other hand, Mr. Shanahan and the San Francisco 49ers keep missing the bar.
We do, and we can talk about that now.
That was a clever little segue for you, Hines.
No, it was a great segue. Yeah. Last 5 years, 2 Super Bowl losses, 4 NFC championship appearances, 2 NFC championship wins, obviously tied into those 2 Super Bowl losses. Very relevant outside of the 2020 year where everything went bad because we lived in not we lived, but in California, they had to go and settle in Arizona, and then all of the injuries. And so that was like the one-off year. But they were been really good with a core group of guys since 2019. And yeah, some people are suggesting that Shanahan's cursed. I don't like to suggest that. I don't like to pronounce curses or assume curses on anyone. I was hoping this year with Brock Purdy, things would be different. And to be fair, things were different. The offense looked different compared to years prior with Jimmy G or Jittery G. It looked very promising. And you know what? We didn't make enough big plays. The Chiefs did make enough big plays. And at the end, the Chiefs got the ball last and had the last say with 4 downs in overtime to make their way to the end zone. And they did so, relatively speaking, with ease. There was one 4th and short, and they put the ball in Mahomes' hands and let him run. And that was really it. That was all for that.
I'd like to go ahead and take this time to just notate that I called that Patrick Mahomes with a game-winning drive in this game, and that they'd win by 3. So
it's probably a minus 150 bet right there, Cam. So congratulations.
Hey, win is a win, pal.
No, before we go into kind of our thoughts, Hines, as you kind of look at the last, it's 2 Super Bowls in 5 years, and then how many NFC Championship games?
4.
So as you kind of taking the Brock injury from last year out of it, because I don't know what we could have gotten or not gotten from that if he would have stayed healthy. Right. But what do you think is the overall organizational takeaways for the shortcomings? What do you think? Is there any reoccurring themes or any trends or patterns that stick out to you?
Yeah, I think one of the reoccurring themes is we get leads in the Super Bowl, obviously, and for whatever reason, we can't keep them. We can't build upon them. Whether that's Shanahan kind of getting a little, what would I say? I'm thinking of a word that I can't think
Tighten the
of.
britches.
A little tight in the britches, but I would argue he really didn't because he threw the ball. I think he did the opposite, right? He threw the ball 8 of 9 times in the first 3 drives in the second half. And so he kind of did the opposite where it was like, hey, he maybe learned from the past, or we would think he was trying to learn from the past and saying, hey, I'm going to zing when they zag or zig when they zag. And he didn't, or he tried and it didn't work. For whatever reason, whether you're going to put that on Brock, whether you're going to put that on the wide receivers not getting open, because if we want to be honest, I didn't see a whole lot of separation all game. I saw way more separation from the Kansas City defense, especially Kelsey in the second half, than I saw from hardly anyone on the Niners side, whether that be Brandon Ayuk, whether that be Deebo Samuel, or certainly whether that be George Kittle. There was not a whole lot of separation at all for the Niners playmakers.
And I want to run this by you. What do you think maybe the way of saying is just like the odd lack of adjustments, or the adjustments that they choose to do seem to not make sense, right? Because like last night, or not last night, 2 nights ago, Chris Jones was having his way. Leo Chanel was having his way. I think it's Pinnell. I can't remember. They were, and there was no adjustments to those problems, right?
Yeah.
And maybe the adjustment was we need to throw it 8 out of 9 times and start the second half. But do you think it's just like a bad adjustments to simplify it? Like, is that a fair way to summarize it?
I think at the very least, I would say that's a fair critique of Shanahan in the Super Bowl. We can certainly make that case for the Falcons debacle. What was it,
Right.
28-3?
Yeah.
We can certainly make that case there. You can certainly make that case for the 2019 Super Bowl game. But when you start to watch that tape back, Jimmy G. Jimmy G. I watched some of that tape leading into this Super Bowl for like the first time, like literally since we lost that game. And it was like, the limited man himself, Jimmy G. And I was late on saying that. I mean, I really do feel like after his ACL injury, he became way more limited. Like prior to that, like he would scramble more, he'd move outside of the pocket. I mean, that's actually how he got the ACL injury, is because he was scrambling, moving, and he had like an 8 to 10 yard scramble, I believe it was, and he tore his ACL. But it was like since that ACL tear, he just became a statue in the pocket in the worst kind of way. And so, yeah, I certainly think Kyle needs his fair share of critique and criticism at this moment. Now, I'll leave this open for you guys. Talk to me about the Brock Purdy criticism. Let's just throw that out there. Let me gift you with that, and let me defend our franchise quarterback, because I know we don't like to call him a franchise quarterback. I know in this group, that's a leery subject. That's an iffy subject. But I think, and I would defend, that Brock Purdy this year, in his second year, some 25 or so starts, including playoff starts, has proven that he is indeed likely the 49ers franchise quarterback, especially if he can continue the season that he had this year going into next season. What are your thoughts on Brock Purdy after this big loss?
Chase, I'll go first. I thought he played all right, this Super Bowl. And I think he's been playing very well compared to the hype around him, that was lacking. There was no hype. He was the last pick of the draft. He's come out. He's had a successful, 2-3 years of playing, right? He just didn't do enough this time around. He has to take that next jump to be able to make difficult throws and to be able to, I guess I would say, adjust on the fly a little better. But I agree with you, John. I think Brock Purdy is a decent NFL quarterback who has led the Niners to success under center. He's young. He's got a lot of growing that he can still do. And we have this mindset of NFL fans, being a Bears fan, we want to win now, right? We want to win now. And you guys are right there. And I think Brock Purdy's right there too. I think he's going to be around for a long time. And I think that you guys are going to have a lot of winning seasons with him, when it comes to record. It's just, is he going to be able to take on Patrick Mahomes? Because he seems to be the guy that's everyone's going to be going up against.
Fair take. Thank you, Chase. Go ahead.
So, outside of like the aggressive trolling that I do to you in the comfort of my own home, I think it's hard to, I think as a 49ers fan, you probably should feel encouraged, right? And you should, it makes sense that you're hopeful for next year.
Mm-hmm.
And as I've said to you about 37 times since Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want you to settle, right? Because I see it as two problems here, right?
Okay.
And especially as it relates to Sunday. And so, was Brock bad? No, right? Could a quarterback with 10% more ability with his arm, and I don't mean arm strength necessarily, I don't mean just how far he can throw the ball or how much zip he can throw the ball. I mean, how creative can you be when things get tough with your arm?
Mm-hmm.
Those things you can't just improve upon like you can footwork or accuracy. You see, and I realize we're talking about top 5 quarterbacks here in this next thing, which is why I said 10% more, not like 30% more.
Mm-hmm.
But when you see Lamar throwing flat-footed and around blitzers, right? Not necessarily exactly like the McDuffie play last on Sunday, but similarly, right? You see them, and then when the pocket gets wrapped around them, and still be able to get the zip on the ball, even if his lower half doesn't come with him, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I think you're gonna have limitations because they're gonna have to pick where they're gonna invest in this team coming up, right?
Yep.
Both draft picks and otherwise, because they're gonna be up against the cap, and Brock is due for an extension at 24, and so we may have seen his best statistical season.
25.
After this next season is when you can go
the
for
next
an
season.
extension.
Yeah.
And so this was probably his best statistical season because it was relatively historic, right? And so there's this physical or traits issue that I have with Mr. Purdy, right? He has far exceeded expectations, and hopefully I have said that. The other half of it is that can Kyle, if Brock shows that he can be that quarterback, or if the next quarterback shows it, can he loosen the grip a little bit, allow for a little more autonomy at the quarterback position instead of, hey, I'm going to give you all these designer looks or all these curated looks. If this happens, you have to throw it here, right? And is he going to allow for a little more autonomy at the quarterback position? Because I think this is, hopefully this makes any flippant sense. This is still a Jimmy G problem. How bad Jimmy G has been since he's left the 49ers makes us really doubt Brock's ability, right? That is a huge part of the question mark, Hines. You're shaking your head, but if Jimmy G went to the Raiders and was average, I think the conversation about Brock is a little bit different, right? Because it shows that Jimmy G was already good. And it wasn't Kyle propping him up. So, but we don't have to go into that.
Who's that? Who was the head coach to start the season with the Raiders?
We're not going to defend Jimmy G right now, are we?
No.
We're not going to defend Jimmy G right now.
Who was the head coach?
Please, we're not gonna defend Jimmy G right now, right?
I just ask a question.
But I know where it's going. I know where it's going.
He went into an absolute wreck of a situation. Now, I am not saying by any means Jimmy G is a top 12 or 15 quarterback. All right. I'm not saying that. But what
But he
I'm
was when he
saying
was on the
is,
Niners, and that statistically he
I
was on
mean,
the
he was
Niners.
like maybe 15. I think I
No,
even would say somewhere
no,
between 13 and 15.
statistically though, right?
Yeah.
Which is how everyone's rating Brock right now. He was top 5.
No.
Statistically, Hines.
And what statistics? Because what the
EPA,
EPA wins.
wins,
What else? What
yards
else?
per attempt or per completion or whatever, right? Rating.
There was some, there's some rating for sure.
But do you understand what my overall
Yeah.
point is, right? Is
No,
that
yeah.
so I probably shouldn't have brought up Jimmy G, but I've been sitting on that one and thinking about it for 48 hours. And so, but my point is that there's this traits issue, and then there's this propped up how Kyle wants to run his offense, right? And
Yeah.
so if Brock improves,
Yeah.
or does that change? And I'm
Yes.
worried that the things that Brock should get better at, he might not be able to because it requires, genes, not blue
Because
genes,
some
but genetics.
physical limitations, right? Some
Yes, and not
physical
even his height.
limitations.
Not even his height.
Well, I think height has
I
to
know
be
it's part of
somewhat
his height,
part
but
of it,
that's not what
because
I know.
I'll tell you this, if I can be completely honest in terms of what I am nervous about with Brock, it's a little different than you. What I'm nervous about with Brock does have to do a little bit with height, not a ton with height, more so with hand size. Like, I never thought that would matter, but obviously in 2 slippery games against the Cleveland Browns earlier this season and the Green Bay Packers, hand size, believe it or not, does matter. It matters in football. He was not able to grip the ball well, had a glove on, then didn't have the glove on, took the glove off, everything. I'm concerned about that. Now, I got to stop saying we. They play in Santa Clara, and so oftentimes there's going to be good weather, but we don't have a dome, and they can't have a dome in that stadium. If they could, that would be amazing. They can't because they're so close in proximity to an airport locally that they won't allow them to put a dome on. I don't understand, but there's height restrictions or something where they cannot accomplish that, according to some articles I've read. So I'm concerned about Brock when those type of elements, and then to consider snow in a playoff game, maybe where you're on the road and you have to throw the ball in a blistering cold weather like KC had to at home against the Dolphins. Like, that's probably going to be problematic for Brock, and he's going to have to somehow figure that out if possible. Everything outside of that, arm strength, I think he has. I think he is pretty close to put that to bed. This man can sling the rock a little bit. He's not the strongest arm quarterback. He's not in the Josh Allen conversation. He's not Lamar Jackson necessarily. I'd say I like his release better than Lamar's. I think Lamar has a loopy release.
And if I can interject, I know you let me go on a monologue there, but I don't disagree. When the pocket is clean, he gets his feet underneath him. His arm strength is very passable.
When the pocket is not clean, though, we
saw it on Sunday. Hines, we saw it on Sunday. When he has to stay in the pocket and not escape, his accuracy gets decreased. His strength, his arm strength gets decreased when he can't throw with his particular release. Lamar's release, you may not like it as an example because he releases it from 30 different angles. Brock is pretty consistent with a couple, right? I'm generalizing here. And so when I say arm strength, it means no matter what. Whereas, and I don't think Brock has those type of physical tools.
Okay. There could be something to that. But let me tell you one thing. There's not a better passer in 2023 than Brock Purdy against the blitz. When the pocket is collapsing, and by the way, with the right side of our O-line, if you watch Niners football as much as I watch Niners football this year, the pocket collapsed consistently. The pocket collapsed constantly. And that young man found a way to find the open guy, hit the check down, hit guys over the top for very big plays because he has some yak guys, no doubt about it. He's got Debo, yes. He's got Ayuk, yes. He's got Kittle, yes. He's got CMC on check downs, yes. But I mean, we just watched Patrick Mahomes in terms of air yardage. Patrick Mahomes was far less air yardage than Brock Purdy.
Why couldn't he do it on Sunday?
I would argue he did everything he needed for the most part, outside of maybe 2 throws we can pick apart in an entire game. We would be doing the same thing right now if one ball bounced the Niners' way, one fumble bounced the Niners' way, and the Niners would probably have won. We'd be doing the same thing with Patrick Mahomes right now. Why couldn't he have done this one more thing? Why couldn't he have done this one more thing? When I would say Brock Purdy did almost everything possible in his arsenal to be able to put the Niners in a position to win this game. Was there a couple plays he missed? Absolutely. But the young man did not turn the ball over. The young man played fluid, played within the system really well. He made some big throws, big plays in key places. He made big throws in big places in key positions of that game. And it wasn't enough, not necessarily because Brock wasn't enough, but because the ball bounced the other way. I mean,
I know you're right, but it's also really it's almost like the easy way out to explain a loss, right? Because the other part of this, you had 33 carries for 110 yards and you averaged negative 0.3 EPA on all of your runs throughout the entire game.
Right.
And so but you are insinuating that not everyone else did their job. That's what you're implying. Everyone else did their job not as well as they're supposed to do, as they should have been.
Right. And that's something that should be talked about in this. So we're saying, what could Brock have done? What could Brock have done? You know what? Our star running back, 3.6 yards a carry and a fumble. Okay. Now he obviously had a big touchdown on a crazy screen pass from one side to the other and all of that. But 3.6 yards a carry on 22 carries and 80 yards isn't going to cut it. And obviously, we knew KC was going to stack the box. We knew they were going to give some hard looks. Some of that has to do with it. But again, then when you look on the other side, when we were passing and we slang the rock, or we passed it quite a bit, 38 times, we were getting a ton of separation. I mean, and 6 different times in the game, 6, count them, 6. There were 3 rushers not being touched by a Niners player right in Brock's face, either batting it down, smashing him as he's getting hit. The man stood in the pocket, took a lick, got back up, got back to the huddle, and kept slinging the rock.
And all that is fine. But the quarterbacks that have 10 to 20% more physical ability, more plays become positive. Now Brock can change that, right? Some of that can get better because I've conceded the high point that his escapability is there, right? His pocket awareness, for the most part, for relative to his time in the league, is pretty good, right? Like it's not a flaw, right? But the physical traits to do what you need to do when times get tough, which is what I've said all year. That's the one consistent point that I've had to you, is that can he overcome when things get tough? And we saw on Sunday that superstars couldn't do it besides Bosa, right? Bosa was on fire until the Chiefs made an adjustment, right? And then exposed his aggressive crashing down. So I'll stop talking about Brock.
Okay.
If I were to summarize, it's 2 points, right? If Brock improves, will Kyle loosen the grips a little bit and allow him to use his strengths, which would be like his mental awareness or mental ability, and kind of scampering around? Will he loosen that and let some of that become his, or will Brock get better as a thrower? And you know what I mean when I say that.
Yes. No, that's fair.
I have a question. And
go ahead.
It's more for quarterbacks in general in the NFL. Chase, you're mentioning, Kyle Shanahan loosening the grips, right? one thing I thought I noticed this year and maybe last is like the amount of quarterbacks that just do not say, you know what, the play you just called is dumb. We're going to do this instead seems to have diminished to pretty much like non-existent compared to, let's say, Peyton. And we have, Tom and probably Eli, um, that kind of generation of quarterback where they go ahead and they say, you know what, I don't like that play. We're running this. Do you guys notice that at all this year and let's say this year and last?
Well, look at the average age of the quarterbacks in the NFL now
Mhm.
compared to 7 years ago, right? And so the average experience. So some of that is just purely changing of the guard, right? There's probably maybe I'm trying to do a quick count in my head, 3 quarterbacks right now that probably have some autonomy at the line, and you're talking Mahomes, Josh Allen, and maybe Lamar, but I'm not even sure that
Mhm.
he really has it. It's hard for me to tell that. There's not many that have like you do you up there. You know what I mean? You have the autonomy, and I think that's more because of age and experience than is is anything else.
Sure.
I see that as well. We'll get to that comment. Tim Hunt, he struggled with KC Blitz Sunday though. Yeah, again, six times in the game. Free guys, free, not three, but free guys literally in his grill. That there were some problems offensively on the offensive line that I think played into that, as well as they just sent more than we had. And I don't know what his numbers were against the blitz, but I'm sure they weren't great. Certainly his numbers on third down weren't great either. I'm gonna segue this with making one final point in terms of Brock Purdy compared to another second-year quarterback who recently went to the Super Bowl, and that is Joe Burrow. And he went up against the LA Rams, and I'm not trying to compare the two in terms of I think Purdy is better than Burrow at this stage. I don't believe that. But if you look at their numbers in that Super Bowl and the weapons that Burrow had, by the way, I never remember anyone mentioning the weapons that Burrow had. I never remember anyone saying, but he had Jamar Chase, but he had T. Higgins, and even his
He
third
didn't
wide
have T.
receiver.
Higgins, I don't think.
Yes, he did. Thank you. But
He
yes,
was a
he did.
rookie though, right? It
He
was
went
Tyler
4
Boyd and
reception.
CJ
He went
Uzama.
100. He went 100 yards. T. Higgins was the leading wide receiver in the
Yep.
game for the Bagels. He had
The
Jamar
Bagels.
Chase. The Bengals. I'm getting hungry for breakfast. He had Jamar Chase. He had T. Higgins. He had Tyler Boyd, and yes, he had Uzama. I'm joking. And he had a very good running back, especially that year in Joe Mixon. Probably at that time was probably top 7-10 in that area. A really high end running back who, by the way, had 4.8 yards a carry in the Super Bowl, unlike 3.6 against KC in this game. And so he had weapons all around him, and the numbers are almost exactly the same. Almost exactly the same.
But
And
but
yet
you
we just rained on Burrow. Second year, he lost the Super Bowl. Look at Joe Burrow. He's going to be back sooner rather than later. He's already in the elite category and in the status. And we look at Brock Purdy and we say, we're not even sure if he's good. We're not even sure if he's going to be worth the contract in 2 years. We're not even sure if he's ever going to get back to this moment. And it just kind of throws me off a little bit.
Well, if you watch those two play quarterback and you can't see the difference in skill, which I know you articulated that, if you
Yeah.
can't see the difference in baseline skill, then I don't know what to tell you, because it is a significantly different, but just better quarterbacking, better traits, better almost everything. And so if you can't see that, I don't know what to tell you. And the second part is my overall point in all this is that don't settle. If it doesn't get better, don't invest 20 to 35, 40 million dollars in Brock Purdy just to continue to fall short. That is my overall concern for the Niners, is that you're going to have this sorry. Thanks. Yeah, it's that's all I can see too, Steven. It's
Okay.
ridiculous.
It's
And don't pay him if it's not worth it. You don't want to fall into the Tannehill. I'm not comparing them in terms of skill and outcomes. I'm comparing them to contract. You don't want to fall into that size of a contract.
No, you don't.
It mean nothing, right?
You don't.
And so you take next year, have all the hope you want in the world, but
Yes.
you cannot be loyal
Hope
out
is
of
high.
loyalty's sake.
I'm loyal.
When you say settling,
Oh,
you
I
mean
am so loyal. He's saying settling, like don't pay him 25, 30 mil a year and have a guy who you're never going to be able to win the big game with, and you're going to have a low ceiling, and you're not going to be able to surpass Mahomes or anyone who comes out of the AFC because they got dogs in the AFC behind center. I get it. There's going to be a lot of guys in the next 5-6 years that are going to have their crack at the Super Bowl, whether it be Allen, whether it be Burrow, whether it be Lamar, which he's had his problems in the playoffs, or whether it be now Stroud. There's going to be dogs in the AFC that are going to be coming for Patrick Mahomes, and should be great football. Go ahead, Cam. Sorry.
No, I was just saying, do you give him a contract at all if you're not going to give him a big one as the quarterback, the leader of the team? What, I guess, clarity around what you mean by don't settle. Just move on, or give him a 3-year mediocre contract to extend his time to try and prove himself. Because what's the point?
That's what I'm saying. You have to be honest with yourselves as to where he's at. And if you reflect on what it was, which was probably going, again, statistically, just in terms of pure outcomes, was probably going to be one of his best seasons of his entire career, if not the best, right? Just in terms of efficiency, effectiveness, all that kind of stuff. So you can't look at year one. Year one as a full-time starter, and just assume that that's coming back if you don't see improvement in this coming year. And so when I say don't settle, don't pay him because you remember this year. Pay him because of what he's going to be. And right now, so like you paid, I'm obviously making these numbers up as I get ready to talk here. You paid $1, you paid 50 cents per Brock Purdy in the draft, right? And you're getting $5, $7, $10 worth of value. Okay. Don't pass on the guy that may cost $10 and give you $50 in value just because you got a guy for 50 cents at one point who's giving you $7 of value. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Let's transition this and let's transition this give me one word answer, guys.
Yep.
Who would you rather have right now? Purdy or Cousins?
On the Niners?
Well, I said one word, darn it.
But
that's on the Niners.
Cousins.
I'm going to go Purdy.
Purdy or Tua?
Purdy. Because I think they're the same. He's already there.
Yeah, I mean, they're left. Tua's left-handed. That's the difference.
Yeah.
So you went
and probably has a TBI.
So that's funny. You both went opposite on each one.
Yeah. I'm older and wiser, so that's probably why.
I like Tua, but I also like Purdy. I mean, Chase kind of said it's the same thing,
Okay. Yeah. I think I will say Purdy and Cousins is hard, but knowing the cost and the price tag that comes with Cousins,
right? But you didn't add that.
No. I didn't. No, I didn't. But I'm just thinking about it because Cousins is probably going to become available this offseason. I'm not saying the Niners are looking at him at all. I assume absolutely not, even though Kyle kind of has a man crush on him. But I don't think that's a thing. I don't think that's a thing happening. Okay, moving forward, we got stuck there for a while.
You didn't answer.
What?
Which
Purdy or Cousins?
Purdy or Tua?
I don't have to. Oh, definitely Purdy over Tua. Definitely Purdy over Tua. I just confessed Purdy Cousins in terms of give me one season. I want to say Purdy just because of the escapability. I've seen Cousins in the playoff, and I know I haven't seen Cousins in the playoffs with Kyle Shanahan and when I don't need one, but he had Justin Jefferson. That's kind of the biggest weapon in the NFL. And he's had some dogs as well in his career. I think I lean Purdy a little bit escapability. I think if there's one or the other who's going to be able to make off timing plays or off the cuff plays when you need it, Purdy has shown he can do that. He did do that throughout the season in some big ways, especially to win 2 huge playoff games, both against Green Bay and against the Lions. I think I'm 51% leaning Purdy, 49% Cousins, but it is very close in my mind.
That's symbolic.
What's the deepest
Subliminal.
Kirk has made it into the playoffs?
He's won. Is he won 2 playoff games? Obviously, you like that. He won that one
Right.
in the wild card. You like that?
I think the better question is, Cam, how good have Kirk's teams been? Look what he was before the Achilles injury this year. He was on fire.
Unbelievable. He had a historic season incoming for sure before that injury, and unfortunately that was real bad. And so the question then you have to have is this Achilles now at his age where he's at, is that injury going to slow him down? He's already a statue back there. Is that injury going to even slow him down even more moving forward? We hope not. Obviously, Kirk is an amazing guy, just a great guy overall, and a really good quarterback. I definitely think he's in the top 8 conversation, even though
I know we need to wrap up, but let me ask you one more, Hines, and we don't get to answer this one. Purdy or Goff?
Purdy.
See, I think
Purdy easy.
So here's the thing. Here's my only quibble is that the weaknesses are the same in terms of against the blitz and when things get difficult, right? Like when you don't necessarily want to lean on Goff to be your hero, right? And at this point in Purdy's career, you don't want to lean on Purdy to be the hero, which is very much why. Nah, I won't say that. I don't really feel like getting that argument. My only thing is Goff, I think, has much more physical traits with his arm, but it's at the sacrifice of probably some of the mental stuff and escapability.
Yeah.
But he can make every single throw in many different ways, and I don't know if Purdy can do that. That would be my only thing.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Let's think. Goff in a Shanahan system in the Super Bowl. Has that ever happened? Oh, it did happen against a really good defense. Oh, it did happen. How many points did he score? How many points did he put up? What kind of numbers did he put up? He did nothing. He was an absolute nobody.
And then let me ask you this. Okay. Let me ask you this. What did McVay do? What did the Rams do when they saw Goff's performance? What did they do?
Yes, they shipped him. And they went.
What did they do?
Which, by the way, the Niners should have had Stafford. Shanahan was on a vacation and did not think he was going to be taking phone calls or whatever, and he thought he had an extra day. The Niners would have had Stafford.
But my point is that the Rams looked at their situation and said,
right,
we can't win with him. We need to get somebody else.
Right.
So. And that's my point. Don't settle.
This is not, but it's not. I understand that's your point, but I just proved to you it's not the same. It's not the same. Those 2 games in those 2 moments with those 2 systems and those 2 players, that you look at the tape and you're going to say, my goodness, Purdy looks head and shoulders, no pun intended, above Goff. He does when Goff was in the Super Bowl compared to Purdy being in the Super Bowl now, and Goff may have taken some strides forward, but want to talk about a guy with weapons right now. Jared Goff has some dogs. You could even argue
we are not comparing your MVP.
Are you kidding me?
Your stars on the Niners, and then
with Jared Goff's weapons.
Yeah, he's got Amon-Ra St. Brown and Gibbs, right, and
Reynolds. And Reynolds.
Oh,
and
you are not putting Reynolds and oh my goodness, get out of here.
Josh Reynolds ain't it, bud.
And a 1-2 and a 1-2 running
Josh
back
Reynolds.
and a 1-2 running back in Montgomery, which you just poo-poo as a Bears fan as if he's nobody and nothing. The guy is a top 12 probably running back. He is right up there. Montgomery, Gibbs, St. Brown. With some guys
where did all those guys
rank
in the MVP voting? Where do they all rank in the MVP voting?
They did. It
Oh, they
doesn't
didn't. That's right. Okay,
Yeah.
that's right.
Oh, wait. Let me think. Where did they rank in the MVP voting? Nowhere, because they didn't have Brock Purdy shipping them the ball. They didn't have Kyle
Oh.
Shanahan running the system. Like
Yeah.
those things are real things. Those are real things.
Yeah. So
And
don't settle
listen,
for Brock if
and
he
by the
doesn't get
way,
better.
say,
If
yeah,
he doesn't
say,
get better,
you
don't
know,
settle.
don't settle. But to say that the dogs aren't comparable in
They're
Detroit
not.
with
They're
San
just not.
Fran, I
They're just
think
not.
you guys kind of overhype a Debo Samuel a little bit. I mean, obviously he does some big things. I'm talking this year. I'm not talking in his historic season, 2 years ago when he got the contract he got. I'm talking this year. Like he's good, solid. Just a pinch over 1,000
You're
yards.
walking
Good,
back your thoughts on
good.
Debo though right now. You were walking him back because
I'm saying compared to St. Brown, who do I want? St. Brown or Debo? Who do I want? St. Brown or Ayuk? It's not even close. It's not.
I'm
It's
going
not
Saint.
close.
I'm going
Congratulations,
Saint
and you have
Brown versus Debo for sure.
you have CMC,
Oh,
who's
yes,
better
me.
than every single one of them.
CMC is better than every single one of them. Yes. How'd CMC do in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, and whose fault is that?
160
Whose
yards
fault is
total.
it? I don't
Touchdown.
know. You got
No, I'm asking
3.6
you.
yards, 3.6 yards a carry, and he fumbled the ball on a scoring drive. Whose fault is that? I don't know, Chase. Whose fault is it?
I think this is the adjustments conversation from back in the beginning
Yeah.
because I
Back
think there
then's
was
back
some
then.
It is. It is. Church.
Incredible callback there.
Okay, here we go.
Incredible.
Yeah,
All
move
right.
on.
I love this. Let's get to the hypothetical and then we got to land this plane. Thanks for those who are joining. Let's look at the ticker here. This is the question as we close out. Hey, I really wanted you guys to be able to talk, but see, Chase just went on some rants, man. I'm sorry. He's a talker.
Don't
I'll
put that
tell
on
you.
me.
You did. You
You
went
told
into
me
some rants.
you asked the question and I answered.
That's good. I appreciate it. You've
It
been
took
actually
forever
crushing.
to get
You've
it
been
answered,
crushing it.
but
You've
you
been
answered.
carrying. You're carrying, my man. Okay. What excites you most? We have two more questions. And B, if you could be in 90 seconds or less, what excites you most about the NFL season heading in 2024? Talk about your Bears.
Go ahead, Cam.
The Bears are on the clock now. This is what's coming up next. I'm excited to see. I think Ryan Poles has done a good job since he's taken over the GM spot for the Bears. I like Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields is getting better. But, I slowly keep buying into the Caleb Williams hype. I don't like the term generational, okay? I don't like it. I'll say it up front. I trust at this point Ryan Poles to make good decisions, and I'll trust whatever he does. So that's what I'm excited about.
I don't know. I don't want to say I'm excited for what the Bears are going to do because I have absolutely zero faith. They have to prove it to me. I'm excited to see if the Chiefs can three-peat. I'm excited to see what the next iteration of the Rams is going to be, the next iteration of the Ravens, the next iteration of the Niners. I want to know what lessons are going to be learned from these seasons.
Wow. That shocks me, Chase. Good for you, man. Good for you. So tell me, why are you so discouraged? Give me 60 seconds here. Why are you so discouraged with your beloved Chicago Bears?
History.
I don't have enough. 60 seconds is not enough time to name the quarterbacks and overall roster failures that we've had since I became like a knowledgeable fan. So they haven't shown that they're trustworthy. So there's no point.
Okay.
And it's a lot easier to have that change than to be let down. Again.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. I am excited for next season. The Niners really have an opportunity to run it back. I think they're going to sign Ayuk. The people who are gone to free agency aren't key people. We actually have like all the core coming back if we want. Now, will the Niners make a splash? Will they do something crazy? Will they consider trading George Kittle? I don't think so, but could they? Maybe. Debo Samuel, could they? Maybe, if the package is right. I think they're going to be taking calls for guys like Kittle, for guys like Debo Samuel. And I would be shocked if they're taking calls on Ayuk. I think they're ready to make a deal with him and see him continue to grow. Every year he has continued to grow. I don't know if he's a top 10 wide receiver. I mean, he was 7th, I think, in yards this year. He could certainly be in the top 10 conversation, definitely top 15. And so I'm excited for the Niners to have an opportunity to run it back, hopefully stay healthy, excited for Hufanga and Jair Brown on the back end there, with Ward and Diamador Lenore having another year, and seeing if another year will do it for Ambry Thomas, or if someone will come potentially in the draft or free agency to fill that nickel cornerback slot role, to see Greenlaw come back from his Achilles, to see Warner another year. Like, it feels like the window is closing, and this is maybe the last year with those core guys before we have to reload. So I'm excited for that for the Niners, and they are the Super Bowl favorites for 2025 Super Bowl, which means absolutely nothing to me, but for whatever that's worth. Okay, last question, and we're going to get to some of your questions here. We see them. But last question, and then some questions. Look at the scroller at the bottom. Hypothetical here. Would you rather win the Super Bowl and be bad for 20 years? We've had this talk before as the fellows. Or would you rather be relevant for 20 years and no Super Bowl within that 20-year period? What do you think, Cam?
If you don't mind, if I can answer first real quick, because I got to go.
Yeah.
So having experienced the Red Sox winning in 2004, right? If they would have lost that game and then been competitive in 07, lost again, been competitive in 13, lost again, 18, lost again, I would be miserable. Give me a championship.
Fair.
Give me a championship.
Cam.
I got to go though. Later.
See you, Chase. I'm going to compare it to baseball as well. You and I share White Sox fanhood together.
Yes.
And next year will be 20 years since they last won the World Series.
Yes.
And they have not been relevant.
No.
Not really.
No, they haven't.
But I'm going to take the championship.
I thought you were going the other way with that lead up, man. I thought you were going to say it, and it's been miserable.
Yeah, it's been terrible. But that year, that playoff run, arguably one of the best playoff runs in the history of baseball. With how
Where's
they performed.
Frank Russell at? Where's Frank? Frank, are you with us? Frank Russell, huge White Sox fan. Cam, you would love this guy. Our worship leader at Coopersville Reformed Church, loves the White Sox, from the south side of Chicago. Frank Russell, there he is. There he is with a little bit of an amen. I will say that 2005 run was historic. They only lost one game, and I think it was a 1-run game against the Angels.
It was the first game of the playoffs.
Game 1. No, it wasn't the first game of the playoffs. It was the first game against the Angels, because we swept the Red Sox.
You're right. Swept the Red Sox, lost game 1 to the Angels.
Yeah.
1 out.
And then just 1 out. Unbelievable. And swept the Houston Astros, and obviously some controversy on a drop third strike and all that with AJ. And it just made it so fun.
I think to the time that it was in my life, 15 years old, peak of you being at our house, another White Sox fan, you're punching the fan on accident when they win. Something I'll never forget, I also want to say we went to a ton of White Sox games that season and then the following. It just was a huge time.
Cam, I'm going to answer this question from my perspective, but what historic game did you and I attend together?
We went to Mark Burley's first no-hitter against the Texas Rangers, where the only base runner was Sammy Sosa, who was picked off, I believe, 2 pitches later.
Bang! He was. And so he actually
center field bleachers.
He faced the minimum. He faced 27. He faced 27 and sat him down, obviously, apart from the walk, but then picked off soon. And do you remember we had a guy badgering behind us who was probably way overserved? And he was when Sammy Sosa got out, little Sammy Doja and everything, and just giving us a hard time. And then he got picked off, and I think I stood on my chair on the bleacher and pointed at him. And pointed at him like, gotcha. Oh,
Yep.
that was such a fun game. And it's funny now
Another
because Chase just left the chat, and Chase also left that opportunity because he had an opportunity to come with
Yep.
us.
and John Mullen. I vividly remember you taking your shirt off and twisting it around your head like a helicopter, like your name was Petey Pablo. It was a great time. It was you and I in the center field bleachers. You know, that's a good pitch. All the works.
Yeah.
You know, it was awesome.
Yeah. How old were we? How old were you? I feel like I was like 18 and you were like 16.
That was probably 2 years? Was that 2 years after they won?
A year or two. I don't know if it was the next
16
year.
or 17.
It was
if it's that.
2006. I think he did that in 2006. It's a Google. It's a Google search away.
Googleable.
It's okay. You Google that, and I'm going to answer this question. Hypothetical: When the Super Bowl be bad for 20 years or be relevant for 20 years and no Super Bowl? Let me just share just the. I want to share the other side because I'm a process guy. Thank you, Frank Russell. You were right, Kim. It's 2007. Frank Russell, April 18th,
Yeah,
2007.
17,
Frank
you were
Russell
19.
probably has that tattooed somewhere. He's the biggest White Sox fan I know. I'm gonna share the other side. I'm a process guy. I love the process. I don't know what it is about me. I'm a weirdo. I love just going in the grind and going into the next season. I'm already excited about the next football season. And I just suffered a devastating loss no more than 48 hours ago. And I'm already like, I'm a little giddy. I'm like excited for Brock. I look at the painting my beautiful painting my wife did, and I still get excited. I'm not mourning. I'm not whatever. I'm emotionally invested, but I'm a weirdo and I love a process. And I'm able to kind of be optimistic enough to say, hey, you know what? Let's go get them next year. There's something about this last 12 to 15 years in the Harbaugh and Shanahan eras for the Niners that have been incredibly enjoying for me as a fan, even though we have come up short in 3 Super Bowls in the last 12 years. And that has stunk. And we've been to so many, I think 8 championship games in the last 12 years or 14 years or so. Like it's a crazy amount of championship games, and we have come up short at the very end. We have yet to reach the pinnacle, but there's something about the process that I know what it feels like now as a White Sox fan to win and then for 20 straight years basically be non-relevant and to go into playoffs and win 1 of 4 or whatever. And it's just like, oh my goodness, I don't even want to watch the team. And so as much as I don't know what the answer is for me because I wrestle, because I love the process so much.
The thing with like having a relevant team is like you actually win games. You know, like you're in the regular season, especially like if it's baseball, there's 162 games. If you're relevant, you're winning over half of those. Like the White Sox won like 60 games this last year. The Bears have won, I think the Bears won 5 or something, 6, 4 maybe. Like it's just not enjoyable to a certain extent watching this drought. But the joy that I would have if the Bears won the Super Bowl next year with Justin Fields or whoever, it would just wipe all that last,
That's fair.
That's just wipe it all away.
No, that's fair. And I think when push comes to shove, I think I lean there as well. But man, I just like, I've had so much fun in these last 12, 15 years as a Niners fan, just being relevant, making deep playoff runs, being able to enjoy the team, get to know some of the guys through interviews and everything. And it's been really cool. So like seeing this, and then we're gonna exit out here. I'm gonna share my screen with you guys to hear this from Brandon Ayuk, who right now has to play hardball with the Niners because he's going into contract negotiations. To hear this almost made me tear up, and I am too emotionally invested. Listen to this.
Brandon, what are you going to remember most about this particular roster this past season?
Just
Ooh, the quiver. This response.
just guys that came in to work to be champions every single day.
Oh. Oh.
We've all done the what he's doing right now, the shaking and the bobbing, trying to fight back, and we've all been there.
I say,
That's all I got.
oh, that's all I got. Give this
Yeah.
man his money. Give this man his money. That is the type of passion. That's the type of teammate. He wasn't thinking about himself there. He had 3 catches in all 3 playoff games, including the Super Bowl, Green Bay, Lions, and the Super Bowl. I think he had 3 catches in each game. And he had some big catches. I mean, he had like 48 yards, I think, in the Super Bowl. So he wasn't irrelevant at all in the game, but he didn't play a huge role. There's a lot of people.
Well, 2 of those I think were long third down catches to convert, were they not? I mean, those matter.
I think so. I know at least one was. He had some memorable plays, some memorable catches, and I'm sure there's way more on the tape in terms of his blocking and in terms of just what he did in that game. But to see that level of love for his teammates, to say, "Hey, what do you think about when you think of this year?" And to say, "Man, it like I see guys who came to work every day and wanted to win a championship, and then to come up short." To me, man, if I'm a teammate, or if I'm Trent Williams, if I'm one of the leaders in that locker room, George Kittle, if I'm Fred Warner, if I'm them, I'm going to John Lynch and saying, "Get the deal done. Pay the man. Let it be reasonable, obviously. Pay him what he's due, but pay the man. We want that guy in the trenches with us next year." This guy's grown so much. He's grown on me. I think this is his 4th season every year. If you remember his rookie year, he didn't even get to the field, I think, until like week 7 or 8 because he wasn't blocking in practice. And Kyle wants dogs down the field, and he was struggling to do that. But once he got going, once he bought into the culture, he's been nothing but a great teammate, nothing but a great wide receiver. And every year he has progressed. And I hope we can sign him, and I hope he continues to progress, because those are the kind of teammates we want. Hey, man, it's been enjoyable. Thank you so much, Cam. Look at Cam's handles here. So you got to follow C-Zyke here. Great Bogey Pod on X, and Cameron_Zyke on Instagram. He's got a lovely family, young family, and Cam's considering getting in the podcast game here. Yeah,
I wanted to speak to that. I'm going to be doing my first solo tomorrow, but it's going to be golf focused for the most part. We'll talk sports in general a lot, but tomorrow I'm going to be doing. I was at the Waste Management Open for Tuesday practice round last week. Got to walk inside the ropes with some players, meet some players, and then we're gonna recap the Waste Management Open, and then also kind of give a preview of the Genesis Invitational, which Tiger Woods hosts and is playing in this week. So
nice. Cam was at the Waste Management Open and got to meet some really, really amazing players. I'll let him talk about that tomorrow on his podcast. Guys, make sure you follow him, subscribe to his channels, and check him out. I'll definitely be checking it out. Thanks, brother. Appreciate you. Thanks for everyone
yes, sir.
on all of the different platforms who's engaging with us. Thanks for the comments. I hope we did you well. And hey, man, we'll be doing something here soon. Thanks, brother. Love you, man. And we'll see you.
Yep. See you, John.
Peace.